Hello. All right, I'm going to show you guys how to make a cup in Blender. Um, I watched a lot of videos to do this, so I'll link the videos that helped me out below. But we're going to try to do something like this. So this is for people who've never used Blender before. I'm going to kind of walk you through the main tools and what I would do. So let's get started. So Blender's free. And what I want you to do is to just start a new file. So File, new general. Um, yes, we saved that. Perfect. And when you open a new file, you're going to see something like this, just kind of this grid space with a cube. And if you click on that cube, it highlights in orange. On default, Blender drops in a random object. So anything that's in your space, we consider an object. Now, the main tools that you want to know are scale, which shortcut for that is just S. So up here, we can see this is my little like arrow selection arrow. If I click on this box and click S, I get this white circle, and then I get this blue, green, and red little kind of lines with squares. Now, if I just click kind of inside this circle and drag out, you can see it's scaling the entire square. So I can make it big, small, do whatever I want, and I just release to make it kind of set as that new size. Now, this blue, green, and red squares, those represent the X, Y, and Z axis. So if you remember from school when you did graphing, um, that's what these are. So X represents the red line direction. So if I drag this, I can make my square bigger on the X axis. Y, which is the green, is kind of that green axis. And then Z is up and down. So Z is the blue. So for any objects, you'll be able to scale in that way. And so just remember that scale is S. You can also come over to here and just click it right there. But the shortcuts are going to be very convenient. The other major one is move. So this is the move tool. The shortcut for it is just G on your keyboard. So if I just hit G, you'll see I still get the blue, green, and red, but now they're arrows. So I can click and drag and I can move my object around however I want. Okay. So that's the basic kind of like just looking tools. And on your keypad or your mouse, if you just use two fingers, you can kind of rotate around your object like I'm doing. Um, let's say you need to pan left or right. If you hold down Shift and use two fingers and move to the side, that's how you're able to kind of pan away from something. And I'm using a Mac. It might be different if you're using like Windows or HP. It shouldn't be too different. You might just have to look up how the controls are a little different. Okay, so anyway, that's what I wanted you to see first off. Um, yeah, so let's move on to making a cup. So I'm going to click on my square I got here. I know it's highlighted. I know it's selected because there's this orange highlight around it. And I'm going to click X. X basically asks if I want to delete something. And I say, yes, I want to delete it. So that's another tool or shortcut. X is the delete tool. And then just like when you write papers, Control Z is undo or Command Z. All right, so let's make a cup. We're going to add up here, and make sure you're in object mode. We're going to add a mesh cylinder. I'm going to click that, and it's going to automatically pop in the very middle. This is perfect. This is what I want to start with. We're going to go very simple with this. Okay. Now, let's say you're over here and you're like, I can't get over to my cylinder. What's going on? I'm having a hard time. If you go up to View and go to View Frame Selected, it's going to automatically lock onto whatever you have selected. So see, now I can't really get away from my cylinder. Okay. So object mode is the mode you use when you're dropping in random objects. You're kind of adding new things to the grid. But we want to now edit this cylinder because we want to turn it into a cup or a mug. So with it selected, we're going to go up to this little panel that says object mode, and we're going to click on edit mode. And once we click on that, you'll see all these tools appear here. Very intimidating, don't worry about it. And you'll see that we now have like all these planes, all these lines and dots all over our cylinder. And if you notice up by edit mode, right now, the one little box with a dot is selected. This is the vertice or vertex selection. What that means is if I zoom in here, I can click and select points at a time. So I can select individual points and then using scale or move, I can move those points. So if for some reason I wanted to move this little point outward, I just need to click G, which is the shortcut for move, and I could change kind of how this cup looks or this mesh. We kind of refer to the grid system over it as the mesh. The mesh is what kind of holds that object together. So up here next to edit mode, this little dot would allow me to select individual dots that I want to move. If I hold down shift, I can select multiple dots and move them out. And I'm just hitting Command Z to undo that. The middle is called the edge, kind of edge selection. So that's for lines. So these lines in between planes, if I wanted to move that for some reason, same idea. So I can kind of select these larger lines, move them out. Now, something that you might be noticing, let's say I wanted to move this line here, but I want to move it out like towards me, kind of in an even way, but where the kind of like axes are down here, it makes that difficult. So up here, we have the transformation orientation. It's set to global, which means it's following the grid, but I want it to kind of conform to where that line is or that edge. So I'm going to turn it to normal. And what that does is now my kind of axes, my move tool is conforming to whatever is natural for that line. So see, I can move that out in that way. Anyway, and then lastly, you can select individual faces. So up here next to edit mode, this is how you can kind of edit. These are the main tools that we'll use to kind of change things and select things. So you just choose whether you're on vertices, edges, or faces based on what you're trying to do. For us, we're going to click on edges. And what we're going to do is click this top edge. So the top of our cup. And then we are going to use the Inset Faces tool, which the shortcut for that is I, but you can also just click here. And if you go to this white circle and click and drag inwards, we're basically gonna kind of create the cavity for our cup. So I'm gonna click. Perfect. So that's kind of set. That's how deep I want my cup to go in. And now we are going to drag it downwards to create the inside of the cup. Now, to do this, don't click anything. Don't unselect this. We are going to go to this little kind of like axis tooly bar here and click either one of the Y or the X axes. And what it's going to do is automatically snap our view to that. We want to see a sideways view of our cup. And then up here, I'm going to click toggle X-ray. Awesome. So now we are seeing through the cup. We can see inside. And up here, we still have this face selected, right? But now what we're going to do is we're going to click E, or over here, you're going to click the extrude region button. And what we're going to do is click extrude, and we're just going to drag down, and you can see that white line is the bottom of the inside of the cup, and you just kind of place it wherever you want. And I'm trying to make sure the thickness is like the same around the cup, so I'm just going to put it right there and click. And so it's still in X-ray mode, so I can go up here and just click toggle X-ray to turn that off. And there you can see we got the inside of a cup. Beautiful. Now, this isn't going to make sense immediately, but it will, because it's going to help the cup not look as strange later on. But with your face kind of selector edit mode, click this bottom face we just made, and I want you to click the inset, which is I, and just bring it in a little bit more, and just click, okay? May seem that that's kind of random, but what it will do later is it'll help smoothen out the faces so we don't get kind of a strange star pattern. So I would do that. Okay, so now you have kind of the basic cup shape. And you're welcome to kind of move forward with this, or if you want to get kind of fun and fancy, you now know how the toggle X-ray mode works. So something I might do is if I click the toggle X-ray, and I'm going to actually go and click select mode edge. And if I zoom in and then hold down shift and push with my mouse, I can kind of get closer. I'm going to click the inside edge here, and then I'm going to click on the outside edge here. Now what I want is I want to select all of these outside edges and all of the very outside edges because I want to try to make the bottom of the cup smaller. But I'm not going to take all the time to do that. That's going to take forever. So instead, I'm just going to go to select loops, edge loops. And you can see that automatically swings around and selects all of the connecting edges. And now if I hit scale, I'm going to click on the white circle and just kind of drag everything in a little bit. Perfect. And turn off X-ray. That just gives it a little bit of the narrowing that we usually have with cups or mugs. So I just like to do that. All right. So we've made our cup. Now we need to make the cup handle. So we are going to click onto our vertex selection mode up next to the edit mode. And what we want to do is we want to click one of the top vertices here, and we're going to hold down shift and click one of the bottom vertices. So I've got both these selected. And now on my keyboard, I'm going to click Control R. This is a shortcut for something that's called loop. I got to remember down here. What are you called? Loop cut. That's it. Loop cut. The button for it is right here, but again, a lot of times it's just quicker to use shortcuts. So again, Control R, loop cut. If I use two fingers and scroll up, I can create multiple cuts. If I scroll down, I remove those cuts. I want to add a few cuts. I'm not going to really tell you how many. Don't go crazy. You shouldn't be making like something like this. Just like maybe this. This is good. And then I'm going to click. And it's now set the number of cuts, but as you see, if I move my mouse, it's going to move the position of those cuts. If you want them just set in the dead center, hit escape. And what it's done now is it's added more edges, more vertices, and that's more faces and kind of things for us to move around and work with. So I'm now going to pick the beginning of my handle and the end of my handle, what faces I want. So I'm going to click my face selection. I'm going to click this face and let's go this face. Maybe I want that upper one actually. No, I'm going this one. Perfect. Awesome. I'm going to inset them a little bit, which again, inset is when you kind of bring stuff in from like a face from the edge. So I'm going to click I, and I'm just going to click the white circle and drag it. Oops, that's not what I wanted. Inset faces. There you go, inset faces. There you go. Drag it in just a little bit. Don't have to do anything crazy. And then we want to extrude it, which means we're going to pull it out from its area. So I'm going to hit E and just kind of move my mouse a little bit until they stick out about like that. Perfect. So the next thing we're going to do is we want to bridge these faces, which means they're going to kind of automatically connect. Problem is right now is we can't bridge them because they're not remotely facing one another. So we're going to just use our edge selection and we're going to click on the bottom edge of this top little extrusion and hold down Shift and click the top edge of this extrusion below. And then we're just going to move these back a little bit, and that way the planes or the faces are kind of facing one another. So I'm just going to hit G to move. I'm going to grab my, I guess it's my blue axis right here, which is kind of weird, but whatever. And see, now they're kind of facing in one another just a bit. And if I want, I can grab the one up here and I can move these both out if I wanted to. There we go. Okay. So now we're going to click the face selection mode, click this top face, hold down Shift, click the bottom face, and we are going to click Control E. That brings up all these like edge selections, and what we want to do is hit Bridge Edge Loops right here. Don't click anything. Once you have clicked that, you're going to go down to this little guy right here. If you accidentally click something, then you can't go back and edit that. So you might have to hit Control Undo or Control Z a few times and fix that. But we want to click on this Bridge Edge Loops, and we're going to change the number of cuts. I'm going to just click and kind of drag. And you can see it's just splitting this up now into kind of a U shape. It looks a little more like a handle now. And I'm just going to do a little bit. I'm not going to go crazy. That's fine. Perfect. Okay. Click off. Looks pretty good. So this is the basic of the cup, right? It could be better though. It could be better. So one next thing I want to show you is the different views we have. Right now, we are in the viewport shading, which means it's basically showing the basic shapes. It's giving kind of a light shading over everything so that we can kind of see dimensions and whatnot. But the second and last one are the viewport shadings that actually display like color and lighting in a more realistic way. So if we want to click one of these, and we're going to go out of edit mode and go back to object mode. There we go. So we can see the shading on the cup. I'm going to click kind of the middle viewport shading here. But it's still got the geometry, right? It's not smooth. It's kind of like angled. That does not look like a good cup yet. So, and I just wanted to show you guys this so that you knew like, okay, what the heck are these buttons? They're just the kind of, they get more advanced. It's more advanced ways of viewing things. Here, this is wireframe, so it shows you kind of like naked view of all your vertices and meshes, or your meshes. Okay, let's click back on the solid display viewport shading. We're going to click on this guy, and what we're going to do is we're going to add a modifier to smoothen it out. So we haven't looked over here, but over here, so there's a whole bunch of other settings you can do to shapes. So what we're going to do is we are on the object mode right now. We're going to click the little wrench that is the modifier panel. And we're going to click add modifier, search, and you want to type in or find the subdivision surface. And just as I clicked that, you can see that my cup like automatically got smoother. That's what this does, is it kind of smoothens everything. Here I can change these levels so that it gets even smoother. So you can adjust that as you please. We'll just kind of leave that for right now. So it looks like everything's smoother, but what's great is if you kind of click back on your object and go back to edit mode, it still has the same grid. And the reason that's nice is it's less for you to work with. So what we're going to do now is we're going to kind of make it look a little cleaner. And we're going to do that by adding more loop cuts. So for example, the edge of cups usually is a little sharper, or it has like a little kind of like square top. So we're going to adjust that just a little bit to look a little more realistic. So let's go to edit mode. We're going to click, you can use vertices or edges. I find it doesn't really matter. Click this vertice, and I'm going to click this one, and I'm going to add a loop cut, which is one of these guys. Also, I can just hit Control R to do that. And it's giving me all these options of where I can add them. I just want to add them at this top part. So I'm going to click, and I'm going to drag this up a little bit. And if you notice, it's kind of sharpening the edge of the cup. So see, now it's actually got more of an edge happening. There you go. See that? So I'm going to just add loop cuts where I think things should be sharper. So on the inside, I think I'm going to add a loop cut. So I'm going to click on one of the vertices, hit Control R. There you go. It's automatically asking if I want to add a loop cut inside. I do. I actually think I'm going to drag my 2 fingers on my mouse pad to add multiple. I'm going to click, and I'm going to hit Escape to just kind of lay those flat. And so you see that the more edges, the more vertices and faces you have, it kind of sharpens up what your object's looking like. But again, it's kind of like a double-edged sword, because the more edges and vertices you have, the more complicated your shape gets, and it's kind of more difficult to model and mess with. I'm gonna just add another one up here because I want the inside edge to be a little sharper. So Control R, click, bring this up a little bit. Sweet. So now the top of it looks like a cute little coffee mug kind of shape. I like that. Now the underside of the cup, I kind of mentioned before that we might get a star or like a little flower kind of like shell thing happening. Yeah, this happens because we didn't inset the bottom. Remember, I had us inset the inside of this, and I said, hey, there's a reason we'll do that later. Well, we didn't do it here, so we're going to do it here now. And I'll show you how that's just going to clean up this little shelling that's happening, or ripples. So same as I did to the inside of the cup, let's click Edge, grab one of these edges, go to Select Loops, Edge Loops. It's going to automatically find all the edges that are connected. And now we are going to inset this face, drag it in a little bit. There you go. Just click, and done. And look, no more shelly stuff happening, or at least it's not as bad. I could add more if I wanted, but that's good enough. I just didn't like how much of the ripple was happening. Now next, I might adjust my handle, because handles usually kind of come up a little more. There's more of like a heart shape. So I'm going to just pop back into edit mode. This time I might use one of my faces. I might move one of the faces. So I'm going to click on this face, and I'm going to hit G to move it. I might just drag it up a little bit. And this is where you can really kind of like customize it and mess with what you want it to look like. One thing that might be helpful, you do have to play with this setting, but up here is something called proportional editing. So if I click this little circle, then that means when I move something, it's going to adjust a lot of the other faces and vertices around it to kind of, I don't know how to say, make it more even. So see how when I move this, it moves everything. But when I turn this off and try to move it, it's only just moving one part of that shape. Now, I like this, but you can see that it's kind of intense. But you are able to click to the side of it, and you can change the proportional sizing. So right now, it like changes a lot. You can just put in like 1 point, or sorry, not 1 point, like 0.3 or 0.2, and see if that gives you kind of a better, see, that's a little bit better to me, like a better result. So I liked that. So I just changed my proportional editing to 0.3, and I think that works a lot better. So I'm just going to kind of shift stuff around. so that it looks more like a kind of traditional heart-shaped cup handle. Mhm. Mhm. There you go. And I might move one of these down because I want it to be a little bit thicker, maybe around some of the handle parts. Yeah. Yeah, let's click back to object mode. And see, that looks a lot better to me. Handle is a little thin. I made that a little thin, but you know what? It's fine. It's fine. I can always go back to edit mode and change it up if I don't like it. I could grab multiple faces. Maybe I grab these faces on the side, and maybe I kind of drag it out and try to make him a little thicker. I might turn off proportional editing to do that. Yeah, just make him like a little bit thicker of a handle. Yeah, whatever. I just do whatever I want. I might grab this edge and move him in because I think he's a problem. There you go. Okay, so you can kind of customize and do whatever you want, but there's that basic cup. Um, Now, lastly, if you want to kind of be extra, I did mention that up here we can go to the display render preview in the viewport shading or display materials preview. Let's click on the display materials preview. So this shows materials that we've added on, and we haven't added on any. And by materials, we're talking about like the color, the texture of the cup. So let's just add a color. So we're going to click on our cup. We were on modifiers, we were on object, but we're going to go down to the first red button, which is material. And right now there's nothing. We're going to click and add a new material, and you can double click on the material here and call it cup color, whatever you want. You don't have to name it. I do sometimes just so that I don't get confused. Down here, this is kind of where you select some of the effects of the material and the colors. So let's say I wanted to make a blue glass cup. Okay, so the base color, I click here and I can choose whatever color I want. So let's make it like a deep blue cup. Lovely. And here you'll see there's different settings for how the surface of the cup reacts to light. And if you kind of ghost your cursor over it, it'll tell you what it does. So metallic, kind of self-explanatory. As you drag this up, the surface will begin to act more metallic. You can see now there's more shine, there's more darkness. It looks more like a cobalt kind of cup. And that's because we've just increased that metallic effect. Roughness is just how kind of rough, which means kind of like opaque, unshiny the surface is. IOR is kind of what you use when you're trying to get a reflective glass-like effect. So if you ghost over here, it actually tells you what like levels are good for certain things. So it says that 1.5 is a good approximation for glass. So it looks like we're there. That's good. I'm going to pull down my roughness. There we go. So the roughness kind of counteracts the IO or the IOR effect. So as I drag that down, that's looking like glass for sure. Awesome. Now, alpha is how like transparent the object looks. So if I drag this down, and you can see there's kind of some fuzzy stuff happening, that's just kind of the render preview. But my glass is now kind of see-through. And we can see that a little bit better if we click on viewport shading, display render preview. Oh, we haven't set up the lighting. Never mind, don't click that yet. Viewport display material preview mode. There we go. I'm not going to make mine see-through. I'm going to drag up the alpha to 1 so that it's completely filled in. But I do like the idea of kind of a very glossy cup. I don't know if I want a metallic though, so I'm just dragging down the metallic. So there's my cute little cup. Now, how do we like take a picture of this, right? Because you can just screenshot this, but what I want to show you is how to maneuver your camera and your light. So if we zoom out, you may have noticed these weird things floating in the air. This is your light source. You can add more light sources. You can change it. If you click on it and then click on this little green kind of doodad here, it'll show you the light settings. So right now it is a point light, but you could turn it to a sun. You could turn it to a spotlight. Now notice you're not seeing anything happening. That's because we're not in the render preview. So let's click the last viewport shading button, which is render view. Awesome. So if I click on sun, it just kind of blasts the heck out of this cup because the sun's so close to it. So we can do a point light, spotlight, or an area light. I like area light. I'm just going to keep that. But you can see you can really mess with the settings. You can change the color of the light. If I wanted a pink light for some reason, I could do that. I can change the power of the light. So feel free to mess with that as you wish. Awesome. So that's your light. You can add more lights. Same way you add shapes. You can go up to add and you can go down to light. You can add another type of light and move it. So if I wanted to add another area light, it automatically drops to the middle of my grid. Kind of move that around. The bottom line that's going down, that shows where the light's pointing. And this little yellow circle, if you click and drag that, you can kind of point it where you want it to point. So I kind of want it to point back up at my cup, so I'm moving him around. See if he's going to do what I want. So he's only at 10 watts, so I'm going to drag him up so that he's more powerful. There you go. And now you can kind of see him getting the underside of this. So you don't have to do that, but that's just showing you that you can add multiple lights. You can change different colors. Maybe I want this bottom light to be like, ooh, like yellowy. That's kind of cool. I like that. Awesome. So lights and your objects, you can move around. Now this is your camera. Camera, same idea. You can move your camera around. Now, why can't you look through the camera? What is the purpose of the camera? The camera is what the Blender system is going to look through and take a picture of, and it's kind of the perspective it's going to take for animations and whatever you want to do. So we can see what the camera is seeing if we go render image. So see, this shows us what our camera is seeing. Another way to do that is right here, you have these 4 tools. We're going to click on the camera one. Automatically, it snaps to what your camera is seeing. Now, what if you want to move the camera? Of course, you can click on it and drag it around, but that's hard, and that's hard to see where your camera is actually looking, like what its perspective is. So we're going to instead click on toggle the camera view. And it's kind of hard to see, but kind of to the right of our little axis toggle, there's a little arrow. We're going to click on that, and we're going to click on view, and we're going to turn on camera to view. What that means is as I move around, my camera also moves with me. So I'm going to place this where I want. And then when I'm done, I'm going to click toggle camera view to get out of the camera. And these guys, I'm just going to collapse again. They always have trouble collapsing though. Go away, go away. I don't know why I always have a hard time getting them to go away. There you go, that's fine. So now if I hit render image, it gives me that new side of the camera that I took. Now, if you notice in this image, you zoom in, we can see some sharp edges, which we can't see here. So if you see that, it's just because this is the render preview, so it's not the actual render. It's just a really quick snapshot of the render. But you can always click on your shape, right-click Shade Smooth. That'll automatically smoothen things out. And you can always go back to your Modify panel, and you can increase the levels of the subdivision modifier. So make it even smoother. You could add another subdivision surface modifier. Just taking a minute to load. There you go. You can add another one. Let's see what happened. My stuff just disappeared. There we go. Okay. But again, not necessary. Anyway, there's your cup. Once you have the camera set in place where you want it, how you save a photo actually to your computer is you can go to render, and then you're going to go to image, save, or save as, and you just click where in your computer you want it, and you just name it and click save image. There you go. And there's a cup. You just made a little cup in Blender. Awesome.